So, as part two, this is what the kids call a reaction video. So we're going to have a look at some of the real notes from the case, and we're just going to have a conversation about them, and I'm going to give my normal world, shall we call it, reaction as an objective person who's just learning about this in the last 2 to 3 days since we started looking into it heavily.
And as is apparent from my summary of the witness statements that came in before the case started in January 2023, I counted a total of 953 charges from 21 brethren witnesses. This is after the judge had knocked back the effort by 350 brethren in Leeds to bring the case as a joint body.
So they trumped up 953 charges
Yes,
against you.
pretty much saying the same thing but using different words, as though it was all kind of all trivial, right. all lies really about hate campaigns and stuff. But when you actually understand that that's got to be binding on all the Leeds brethren, but once the Leeds brethren are against you, all the brethren around the world. So if you kind of multiply what's come up from 21 brethren around all the brethren who've got to keep the same view, that comes to 2.359 million charges.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole ganging up of thugs really against an individual, because they can't afford him to be right, because it could pull the whole church down.
Right.
So they have to stand solid.
So they get together and say, what he said, I said.
Yeah.
What he said, I agree with. Just because we're in the same club, so to speak.
Yeah.
And what if that's a perjury? What if they're lying? That's
Well,
perjury,
they were
isn't it?
lying.
And that's an offence that can put you in prison.
Yeah.
So, in theory, they're risking every single one of them going to prison.
But they feel safe because they're all together.
Yeah, well, it's very unlikely that 55,000 people are all going to get sent to prison at once. There isn't a prison big enough to hold them, is there?
No.
But so strength in numbers is very much the game there.
Yes, and they're banking on the fact that no one would dare to put all that number of people into prison.
And they're probably hoping that you wouldn't have enough money to go through all the court and all the ordeal to actually defend yourself against all of this.
Yeah.
So what would have been the result? Obviously you fought the case, didn't you? If you'd laid down and said, okay, I'm guilty of whatever you want me to be guilty of, what would have been the result? Would you have gone to prison?
Very unlikely.
Okay, but you would
I'd have
had a tag on and be at home like a criminal.
Well, I'd have a criminal record.
Yeah. So you'd never go to Australia, for example?
And I'd have a restraining order. That's the point, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have a restraining order from contacting. They didn't want me to contact any brethren ever again, so then carry on with their defence.
So they wanted legal backup for their own internal rule that you're not allowed to contact them anymore. Yeah. So they were getting they wanted the Crown to back them up and say, yes, you're not allowed to contact any of these 55,000 people, even if you hit them in your car, you're not allowed to get out and talk to them and swap insurance details for the sake of an argument, right?
That's the severity of the separation rule.
That's very, very severe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very severe and excessive.
And when you consider they cut me off completely in 2017, it means I lost all my no claims bonus on insurance of the car, which I maintained for decades. So I had to pay a fortune.
Because you had a brethren-specific insurance policy.
Yeah, and I was the life and soul of the business. There was no proper handover of my experience to the younger generation. Just cut off arbitrarily. Whoa.
And what would the clients think about that?
No one knows, do they? Oh, the clients, well, because I was at...
Have they lost clients, because of this?
Well, certainly not performing anything like I intended them to perform with my experience.
Yeah, of course. So damaging to everything.
But I did encourage the whole principle of teamwork in the business, so I was deliberately making myself expendable in that sense. I was getting older.
Yeah.
So
you don't want to be bound to that forever, do you? At the end of the day, the essence of having a successful business is to be able to let go and to be on the golf course or wherever it is you want to be, you know, to be contactable
I never thought
if necessary.
they would take advantage of that.
No, absolutely. Well, you trusted them implicitly.
Yeah. So they did have to admit in the case it was non-violent harassment.
Right.
Because they couldn't make any point that there was any violence.
Well, they didn't have anything on you effectively, did they? If you'd actually done nothing apart from write some letters asking questions that made them feel uncomfortable, that's not a legal issue, is it?
That's right.
You know, you can't go to court and say, this guy wrote me a letter that made me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's in the letter? Well, he asked some questions I didn't like.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Well,
get over it.
Yes.
Get over it.
Yes.
There is a thing called freedom of speech.
Yes. And these statements cover some most funny things, you know, like Clive Anderson said, I believe several years ago, sorry?
Clive Anderson's a comedian from the 80s.
Had a disagreement with the church, and this had led to him disliking the church and calling it a cult. So my point was that anyone who objects to calling the PBCC a cult should be asked to define why and what they understand by a cult.
Right.
I'm ready to give the definition as follows, taken from the Family Survival Trust report. By cult, we mean a group which claims to be the one true church, and that all others are false or apostate, and which expresses this belief by enforcing separation between their members and non-members by exercising coercive control over their members.
So do the brethren claim to be the one true church?
Yeah.
And do they
holding the ground for all of the churches?
And do they separate their members from non-members?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're a cult.
Yeah.
Inarguably a cult.
Yeah.
So the cult members didn't like you calling their cult a cult.
No.
And so they attempted to take that to court and accuse you of calling their cult a cult in court. And I'm saying cult without shame because I'm not afraid of calling a cult a cult.
No, exactly.
You know, a pot is a pot, and you know.
And the point was made in court that cult members don't realise they're in a cult.
Well, this is the art of the cult owners, isn't it? To get the people in without realising, because nobody, I believe, nobody would willingly join a cult. If someone came to me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey mate, I'm in the coolest cult in the world, do you want to join it? No thank you. We get 50 grand each just for joining. I don't want to join it, thank you. I don't want to be in a cult. You know, if somebody came to me and said, do you want to join my business club? That sounds interesting. We get 50 grand each for joining. Okay, I'm interested, very interested. How can we do that? Because I can use that in my businesses to improve my life. You know, what? Tell me more.
Yes.
Well, you have to subscribe to the Bible and to this. Dude, you're sounding like a cult now. You know, to me, it's common knowledge in my world that I grew up in that cults are bad. And they only end in tears as such. You know, some of the most famous cults I've heard of have been suicide cults.
Yes.
Where the members have effectively been brainwashed into group suicide.
Yeah, Jonestown.
Which, you know, we need to protect people against this. And particularly people who are hoodwinked into it. Yeah. Who are unwittingly involved in it and they're possibly in too deep when they do finally realise and they're too afraid to question anything by that point.
Exactly the point.
You know, and this cult is perpetuated. I asked you a question off camera earlier where do you solicit new members for the cult often? And you said no, because most of the members of the cult were born into it. So this is now a kind of closed club that would be very, say I decided I wanted to join it, it would be very difficult for me to get into, presumably.
Very strict rules where you have to leave your family behind and everyone you know.
Or take them in with me and they join too, presumably.
Which won't be easy because they're going to leave their friends.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not saying I even crossed my mind to do it, but I'm just exploring the rules and the difficulties with it. But obviously by being born into it, you have some form of an automatic acceptance. Yeah. Which, however, I presume along the way somewhere, you have to proclaim your allegiance to this cult or this church, as they call it. Yeah. But to me, this is a gross misuse of power, and it in itself is heresy, because if you're claiming to be closer to God than anybody else, then that's a heretic, isn't it? you're, you know, to quote the few passages in the Bible I know is, you know, beware of false prophets. This guy sounds like a false prophet to me, because he's claiming a connection that he doesn't have. So one of their main charges against you was that you called their cult a cult. I can't imagine that stood up in court.
No, it's made a mockery of. And then another thing was they used all this stuff. I personally received a very distressing email from them. It's full of religious hatred and with a link to an 87-page document full of anti-church rhetoric. And I put, and then I found it very upsetting, as did many others who received this email. I say, if members are presented with the truth, whether or not that causes distress must be dependent on how it's received. Is that really my responsibility? The prophets of old caused distress until their words were accepted and God's righteousness prevailed. You know, I mean, the prophets weren't popular, but they were telling the truth.
Well, most of them were killed for their beliefs, weren't they? Or persecuted in any way. However, let me clarify that a little bit. So you allegedly sent an email filled with religious hatred. Can you think of anything in the emails you sent that could be construed as religious hatred?
And when this very guy was questioned in court, where is this religious hatred?
Can you show me?
He couldn't find anything.
He couldn't find anything?
No, and just said, well, it was the tone or the tenor or something.
The tone. So your tone of your email conveyed religious hatred. I would like to hear that tone. I would like to hear his internal voice as he reads that message to see how he interpreted those words as hatred.
So they clearly read all this stuff, all my letters, trying to catch me out. We hate this guy. We're going to catch him out and get to the police.
Do you think their plan with this and their strength in numbers was effectively to simply destroy you financially with the cost of defending yourself against all these trivial religious charges?
And get you to jail.
Legal charges.
My lawyer said they want you in jail, Lance, we're quite clear.
They want you in jail.
And they want you out of money.
So they want you skinned in
Destroyed.
jail because you had the audacity to call their cult a cult and write an email with a religious, hateful tone of voice in the email.
And this same guy, trustee, is saying, and I'm having to care for his family. You know,
wow.
You know, so it sounds a bit dodgy, doesn't it?
So your family are that useless they can't make their own toast in the morning. They need to go and do that because you're not there to do it.
Exactly. Oh dear. And so it goes on, and it's just Lance's comments were defamatory of friends we respect and leaders in our church, and of truths that we uphold as Christians.
And can you guess what that was referring to in terms of the questions you asked in the email?
Oh, they love this separation thing where they can excommunicate people who have nothing to do with them, so they don't have a say.
So once a person is excommunicated, they're not permitted the luxury of defending themselves.
That's right. That's right. No justice.
You're not allowed to.
Not
speak.
allowed to advocate. No chance to present your side of the story.
But what about the Christian guideline about helping and forgiving people?
Exactly.
Did nobody try to help you or forgive you during this time?
Not at all.
Did nobody try to rescue you from your evil misgivings and
basically,
misinterpretations?
When the man of God is against you, all you can do is admit he's right and you're wrong. That's all. No truth is relevant. It's the man of God's word.
It's his truth.
It's dictatorship.
That is a dictatorship, completely. You know, it's not, obviously it's not a political one because it's not in any single country, but it is 55,000 people at an international level, all having to just swallow whole the word of one guy, because he says he's closer to God than any of them.
Oh dear.
Did he have any documentation from God to back up his closeness to God, or was it just hearsay on his part?
Hearsay.
He has no document from God to say you're my man. You're my man on earth. You are the closest one to me, and I give you my authority.
It's propaganda.
Obviously, I know it's a preposterous question, and it wasn't designed in any way to ridicule you. It was just I'm struggling to swallow this guy's audacity in his claims.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So it's just full of defamatory stuff, really, which they hope to convince with their false statements and defaming statements that the judge that I'm I'm a bad person and deserving of being made into a criminal.
Do you think they were hoping to get a different judge that maybe they knew? Did they have any judges in their brethren that they could count on in a time like this? And
no, I think
so
that would be.
Well connected.
They're well connected with the legal system, and they thought the legal system was good enough.
Mm-hmm. Was good enough to create a huge miscarriage of justice in their favour.
Yeah.
Well, luckily for us, the justice system was better than they thought.
Yes, exactly.
And justice prevailed.
Exactly. And then a woman, I went to a house, I think I only ever went to 4 houses since I left.
Right.
And this woman was trying to, just listen to this. On the afternoon of the 24th of December 2020, I was cleaning upstairs at home in Horsforth, Leeds. At that time, Horsforth was subject to Tier 3 COVID restrictions, under which there was a small window during which people could have friends and family over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So we were expecting visitors shortly, and I was busy getting the house ready, conscious as I was losing a race against the clock. I was on my hands and knees scrubbing the floor when I heard, or thought I heard, someone shout, "Hello!" I stopped my work for a few moments to see if I heard anything else, but I did not, so I carried on cleaning. It was shortly after 1 p.m, between 10 and 20 past. I had to go downstairs and change the water in my bucket. And as I reached the top of the stairs, I realised that there was someone hanging on the front door.
Someone hanging on the front door?
My first thought was that it was a parcel my son had ordered that was supposed to arrive by noon that day. If not, it would be one of the many parcels that came from my husband. I ran down and opened the door. To my absolute horror and disbelief, there on the doorstep stood Lance Christie, who had left the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, of which I am a very happy and contented member. She's actually mental and a lot of distress. Some years or so previously, he had with him a young fair-haired boy whom I had never seen or met before. Lance had a brown A4 envelope folded over in his hand. Lance stood there with a funny smile on his face and said, so there's someone in. And then said, "It is good to see you," always to this effect. I replied, "I'm not free to speak with you." He then said, "I love you, Liz, and I love the brethren." I repeated that I wasn't free to speak with him. He said, "Oh, am I that bad?" I again repeated that I wasn't free to speak with him. He's trying to get me for harassment, you see. Mm-hmm. Lance then mentioned something about my father, which was completely irrelevant and inaccurate, but I realised he was using it to try and draw me into conversation with him. I could not shut the door as the folded brown envelope was between the door and the frame, although I did have my foot behind the door so that I could kick or knee the door shut should I have to. Lance then says, "Liz, do you realise that Graham, my husband, was the only one who comforted me the night I was rebuked? I just said again, I'm not free to speak with you." Lance then, she's playing up to the brethren, you see.
Yeah, of course. Well, whether or not she said that on the day, that's what she wants the bosses to think that she said.
Yeah. So on, all this, it goes on. But it says nothing. I mean, this is going to a court. This is going to a serious, trying to get a man into jail. Oh, she's scrubbing floors and,
I have a question. If she did speak to you, and then word got back to the brethren, what would happen to her? Would she have been excommunicated, or at least severely
Well, she did speak to me, but she was very faithful by saying, "I don't want to speak to you."
Yeah.
So, that fear is there. She's in fear.
Where I'm going is
she looked fearful.
The fear she had wasn't from you.
Yeah.
It was from what could happen to her from the brethren if she was caught talking to you, or seen talking to you, or somebody drove past, or whatever. Or these guests arrived. She may have been in a right panic because she's expecting guests any minute.
Yeah.
And you're there, and if they come now, she's caught red-handed, and if she's talking to you, it's even worse.
Yes.
So I can appreciate her fear.
Yeah.
But I can see very clearly that her fear was not caused by you. Her fear was caused by what may happen to her by the church.
Exactly.
That I quote she's very happy in.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
I don't think that sounds like a very happy situation to be in,
No.
where you are so frightened of what could happen to you just because you speak to someone who may or may not have been unfairly dismissed from the group.
Exactly. And they're even saying that...
Where's the justice, man?
Exactly. And they're also saying, that family is saying, now that Lance has been, we're going to have to move house.
Really?
Just in case he comes again.
Really? But why? What did they think you were going to do to them? Try and talk to them?
And brethren from Doncaster, because the brethren from Hull, Chesterfield, Doncaster, Harrogate, all joined in with the Leeds brethren to criminalise me.
To back up the order.
Yeah.
Well, it's a general order, isn't it? So I presume they all received a memo saying this guy is now off limits.
And the guy from Doncaster, Charlie Thomas, said, and we've got brethren worried. Lance has moved now and he's only 13 miles away. So he's closer to us.
So what, you might hike over to their house and throttle them?
Yeah. I mean, I've never done anything violent in my life.
This lady that you just mentioned that was cleaning her house, were they friends with you before your...
Oh yeah, I used to pay for their schooling for their kids, the school fees, all that.
You used to pay for the school fees for their kids?
Yeah.
Why? Because they didn't earn enough money doing what they did?
Yeah.
So you helped to maintain their lifestyle, and the thanks you got for that was her effectively slamming the door in your face. We can say that she's not necessarily to blame for that, because it's the fear behind her and on top of her that's causing her to behave like that.
Yeah.
Which must be awful for her. She must be a nervous wreck.
Cheers.
You know, and I can see that, and I can appreciate why she's so afraid when she sees you. She's not afraid of you, but she's afraid when she sees you because of the retribution that could fall upon her from head office as such of this church that's not a cult. And because churches behave like that, they instill fear into people, don't they, and control them. And not a cult.
Yeah. So life is all about going with the brethren narrative. Like for instance, it's quite crazy. You're out of work and come and have a cup of tea with me. No, can't. Okay. And so...
Well, she would be into a world of pain if that happened and the word got out, wouldn't she?
So, yeah, but even in business, so when I used to go out on business and people asked to go out for a meal or something, we were told to say, we can't eat with you yet. When we're in heaven, we will be able to. So we're going to be eating in heaven. I mean, it's the crazy things you say just to fob off the issue.
Yeah. It's very curious, that, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be fairer to say my religion doesn't permit me to eat with other people?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the other person won't feel shunned.
Yeah.
They'll go, okay, I understand that, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're ashamed of it. That's why we say it.
Right.
We're ashamed of telling the truth straight.
Do you know why that rule is in place?
It's just this dirty world and us so pure, so we're contaminating. And there is something in the Bible there's something in, if you knew the guy next door was a murderer, would you have him around for a meal?
Well, you shouldn't,
Well, it's up to you, but it wouldn't be advisable, I don't think.
I say you shouldn't, as thinking from a religious perspective,
But even
because you don't know if this person is a murderer or not, because they're not in your clan, in your cult, then you don't take the risk.
Well,
of them being a potential...
Yeah, you trust people until proven otherwise. But if you knew he was a murderer, you may exercise your own separation and not eat with him.
Yeah.
Which is wise, probably.
Yeah.
So,
in that instance, for sure.
But they take it to all sorts of extremes and do it to people.
I see. So they're missing... I'm going to put light on this. It's getting a bit dark. But, so it's essentially their own interpretation of a guideline in the Bible to say, if you know this person is a murderer, don't share your table with them.
Yeah.
So they take that to the extreme and say, well, if you don't know they're not a murderer, don't risk eating with them, potentially.
Yeah, and they use the word heresy. So if it's a heretic, shun him, have done with him, for instance. So they're calling me a heretic, so they've shunned me and have done with me.
Right.
So they're using the scripture to justify it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they rebuke me 3 times in
they're
church.
using a misinterpretation of the scripture.
Yeah. It says rebuke him 2 or 3 times, then have done with him. So they're saying that's what they've done.
Right. So, as a Christian, okay, completely disconnected from this, as a Christian, as you know, I'm not religious. So, would you see it as some kind of duty from your part as a Christian to save me by helping me to learn about being a Christian and hopefully become a Christian?
It's not duty, it's love and kindness.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like, I wouldn't, if it's just out of duty, I don't think I'd ever help you. Okay. But I do it because I have, I would want to enlighten you so that you know what has saved me, and you can take it or leave it.
You give me the opportunity for my own salvation based on what you know.
Yeah, I don't believe in thrusting it down people's throats.
Sure.
I don't believe in using the Bible as a weapon to bash people.
No, I wasn't insinuating that at all. What I was going for there is, you know, do you write a person off as a heretic, or do you try and save them as a Christian?
Exactly.
You know, if I was a staunch Christian like you are, I think, I don't know the scriptures like you do, but I think I would feel, and when I say feel a duty, I don't mean a negative style of duty. I would feel it my duty and my honour to share with you the love of Christ that I feel as a Christian. And I would hope that in sharing that with you as a heretic or as a non-believer, that you would come round to my point of view and you would say, it would spark some interest in you, and you would start asking me questions, and you would say, can I come to that church with you and learn a bit more?
Well,
that sounds really interesting.
The scripture we all know is the Good Samaritan. The priest and the Levite passed by on the opposite side, didn't look at the guy being taken by robbers, but the Good Samaritan went down and poured in oil and wine, poured in what he had, his resource, and then took him back to the inn. They looked after him, and healing came in. So that is, as you said in your illustration of going across the street, the woman, the ballet dancer falling in Madrid, same thing, you chose to stop and be a good Samaritan, whereas the others weren't just interested at all, just getting on with the day's work. So you have to be there 2.5 hours or however long it was, but that's good Samaritan. It doesn't need to be a Christian, you're an atheist, but you're a good Samaritan.
Absolutely.
So that's what you're saying.
You know, I reiterate what we've said many times, is that we share the same code of living, and we share the same views, and we share so many of the same qualities and the way we approach life, even though our belief systems are completely different. You know, we can be friends, we can respect each other, we can agree to disagree respectfully on certain points, but neither of us will kill, neither of us will steal, and both of us will always help someone if we can.
Absolutely.
You know, and I don't feel I need a code to tell me to do that, because I was brought up by my parents to believe that, and those things were taught to me in a different way. But the same things were taught to me as were taught to you.
The problem is that religion has come between you and me and our sense of duties, the word you used, towards the greater, towards God, our links with God.
For me, for example, a sense of duty is a positive thing.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I feel a sense of duty. If I see an old lady fall over in the street and all her shopping go across the road, the first thing I'll do is go and see her, see if she's okay, and see if I can help her.
Yeah. Once
I've sorted her out, I then collect all of her shopping and put it in her bag for her, and help her and her shopping back home, or to the hospital if necessary. Now, I would do that as a good citizen, without any further thought on the thing. I wouldn't hesitate, I would immediately do it. You would too, absolutely. You know, I'm sure. You know? And so, you know, visually from the outside, we're two equal guys that just did the equally same thing for that little old lady, and she would be equally grateful to both of us.
And that helps anyone that came to me in the religion as best I could. I got victimised for it.
Which got you kicked out, effectively.
Yeah.
You know, can you think of any, I don't know, any specific help that you may have given that may have been what they didn't like? Did you try and help a drug addict get off drugs, or a prostitute stop being a prostitute, or a guy who beats his wife learn how not to beat his wife? Or
it tends to be.
I'm at a loss as to what you may have done that they didn't like. You know?
Yeah. So there was a prisoner who reached out to me in Nottingham. So I went down to see him and took one or two of his locals.
In prison or out?
Well, he actually had a day out as a a business, so it's the business.
Right.
But he was in prison, a prisoner, yeah. It's getting towards the end, and so of course, I incurred the wrath of the local officials, elders, because I had gone from Leeds to Nottingham.
Right. Ah, so you trod on their toes, on
Yes,
their turf.
But I actually worked with two other brothers, not the officials, because I knew the officials were pretty gloomy and doomy.
Right.
So when I went to see this guy with these two other guys, he was delighted. His wife was, and expressed it.
Naturally.
And then that was turned into, you might
Fraternising
cause them to go out of fellowship, because basically because they were pleased that somebody had come and was prepared to be their advocate. I was cared, yeah. So
because their priests didn't care.
Yeah, exactly. But they were under instructions from the leadership, from Sydney. The government of God is on you. Whoa, all this stuff. He needed just the opposite to that. He needed somebody to lift him up and say, this guy's all right, advocate for him. So I went to the leader in Boston in October 14 and advocated for him. You know what he said to me? He doesn't need your advocacy nor mine. And put the matter back on the guy, the miserable guys in Nottingham who were presiding over him.
So, again, objectively from the outside, to me, that looks like you may have made these guys look bad by doing a better job than them. And they didn't like that.
Yeah, so.
Because they were more interested in whatever they were interested in. I'm not going to speculate.
You go by the fruit. The guy was really encouraged because I went down and his wife was. Well, they're the people that matter. They were people that were suffering.
This was the criminal?
Yeah, this was the guy who was in jail for killing a guy on the road.
Right.
He was
so a road traffic accident.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like an intentional murderer.
No.
It was somebody that was in prison because of manslaughter for a road traffic accident.
Yeah.
So he was obviously, speaking again from my point of view, I imagine he was already feeling pretty guilty about that. And he was struggling to come to terms with what he had caused without intention, but he was paying the price for it. So he needed a friend to come and help pull him along and show him the right path.
And he was quite upset because he
was he religious?
Oh yeah, he committed to the brethren, yeah.
Oh, so he was a brethren?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just some random prisoner guy that wanted help.
Brethren.
It was a brethren that was in prison.
Yeah.
So what had happened to him by the brethren? Had they excommunicated him? Or?
Because of the slur, it's not very good reflection on the brethren. They excommunicated him.
So he was kicked out of the brethren. So in one day, he had a car accident, lost control of his car, ran someone over and killed them by the sounds of it. Hugely speculating, but I'm kind of guessing that's where it went. Yeah. He ended up in prison, and the next thing he's kicked out as well.
Yeah.
And his wife?
She had to live at home.
So she was told to kick him out, effectively, just like
well, he was kicked out anyway, he was in jail, so they couldn't be together anyway.
So is going to jail like an automatic expulsion?
Yeah.
But does somebody still come and tell you, or tell your wife to tell you like they did with you, or is it just, he's in jail, he's out, and that's it?
Oh, the wife's allowed to go and visit him as a visitor.
Right.
And I was allowed to. But I could see that they were discouraging him rather than setting him up for life afterwards. They said, for instance, it's not a given that he can come back into fellowship and be with his wife just when he comes out of jail.
Right.
I said, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Fair question. And he wanted to come straight back and enjoy his wife and the brethren. So I went to
probably spend the rest of his life repenting for what he's done as well. I imagine. You know, he's got that soul on his conscience forever, whether it was deliberate or not. He's got that death on his conscience, hasn't he? As a Christian, that's probably a much bigger deal than for a non-Christian.
Well, I've just heard recently that he's really now struggling and tending to have a drink and stuff like that, poor guy.
Well, I can understand why. He's out on his ear, isn't he?
Well, he's tried to get back up there and be a good brethren, but I've heard from inside that he's struggling.
Oh, so they did let him back in?
Oh, yeah,
right,
because of my intervention. In the end, because of my intervention, pretty much, he was let back in almost as soon as he came out,
Okay.
So it worked.
Your work counted for something.
But I was in massive trouble. They couldn't leave the status quo as it was with my intervention.
Sure. Okay.
But I was a threat then.
Yeah, of course, because you're doing a better job than the people whose job it is to do that.
Yeah.
Which again, you know, Christian forgiveness, Christian helping. Really, they should have been visiting him every day in jail to make sure he was okay.
But they were so miserable. He didn't want them, quite frankly. So that kind of led to
a personality clash between him and his immediate superiors. As such.
And I heard that eventually they let him out for a few hours with his wife in the house, and because of the separation law, he was allowed in the front door and into the room, but they barricaded the rest of the house so they couldn't even have to do with each other. And the authorities were trying to get them to jail and but the Brendan separation rule was so severe that they said if she's to carry on going to the meetings, they've got to keep separate because he's withdrawn from. It's so severe.
It's very clumsy, isn't it, the whole thing? Very impractical. And you know, again, how dare they put themselves in between a couple in that way? Surely that's her decision to try to get back on with her husband and to try to, you know, save him or whatever. And surely it's their responsibility to support that.
Yeah.
As Christians.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, forgiveness.
And they call themselves a mainstream Christian church.
So if I went and knocked on their door tomorrow and said, "Excuse me, this looks like a nice church, can I join it?" What would they say to me? Get out.
Pretty much, yeah, in a fairly polite way.
In a polite way, but they would discourage me from furthering my request to join them in that respect. And if I walked along and knocked on their door and said, "I've got 10 million quid in the bank because my granny just died and left it to me, and I want to join your church," what do you think they'd say then?
Well, they say, of course, even if you're a multi-billionaire, you can't buy a seat in here.
I wasn't saying that. I wasn't offering to buy my way in. I was merely telling them my status.
I don't know.
For example, I've just inherited 10 million quid, and I'm worried I might go completely off the rails. So I'd like some nice church to guide me and help me be closer to God.
They would help you and guide you, but they wouldn't let you become a member. No one does, and you wouldn't be anyway, because you'd have to completely be prepared to completely change your life, not have anything to do, ever go and see any of your relatives or old friends again.
Which, is a difficult task, isn't it? A difficult ask in that
but situation. If you've got money, they would find a way of
extracting it from you.
I think so.
They'll let you make a donation. So this poor guy was in prison. I will go out on a limb and say I can't imagine a road traffic accident where somebody deliberately killed somebody else.
No.
You know, road traffic accidents happen all the time.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the guy wasn't drunk when he was driving. I'm guessing.
He was.
He was. Okay. So
well, at least he's had too much to drink. He wasn't drunk.
So he was over the limit.
Yeah.
And it could have been by 2 sips of beer or something, you know, that took him over that limit, which therefore turned his unfortunate accident into a grossly criminal situation.
But what happened was, after he'd had a drink on a Saturday evening, I think it was, the alarm went off at work. So he just jumped in his car without thinking, went rushing off to work.
And that's when it
happened.
That's what happened. Oh, crumbs. Poor guy. And then how many years was he in prison thinking about that?
I think it was a couple of years or 3. I think it was a couple of years in the end.
And then when he comes out, everything's in tatters. And as far as...
And the brethren take control of your circumstances.
Of course they do, yeah. And also, from potentially from their point of view, this guy is no longer anywhere near as much of an asset to them as he was before, because an ex-crim is less employable than a non-crim. So his job prospects when he came out were not going to generate as much money for them as potentially before he went. Yeah. So it is money again, isn't it?
Absolutely.
A lot of it's money driven, and from what I am gathering from all of this information is you know, if you have a good value to them, then you're of interest to them, and if your value starts waning in any way, then get rid as quick as possible. And one less mouth to feed, but if you can take the businesses from you and keep the money coming in without having to pay you.
But this guy, I think, has had such a body blow that he's probably never recovered his business acumen.
Who would recover from killing someone?
Yeah.
You know, that is life changing.
So
in so many ways,
I would doubt whether they've surrounded him with all the help, the best advice, the best support to keep his business going, because they're not really bothered about individual businesses. They're more bothered about the conglomerate, the kind of, it's a bit like a communist setup, you know, where we provide for it.
I didn't say it, but I did see that similarity earlier. In terms of, you know, the people within it, so long as they got clothes and food, that's their lot, and then all the main money goes upstairs to the bosses.
So just to get on to my, it's quite something to have my sons testifying against me.
That would tear me apart.
Yeah.
You know, I have two boys, as you know, and the one thing I'm so proud of is how close we are and how we would defend each other to the very death. Them with me as well as me with them. You know, and there is no circumstance that you could ever put anything between me and them. I am 100% sure of that. You know, and to be in a situation where a group of peers, loved ones, friends, family, effectively, that you've grown up with since birth, suddenly decide that you two are now against your dad. And I can't fault your boys, because I don't see it as their fault. Even though their actions are pretty much unforgivable, they are wholly misled and mistaken in what they're doing. And they're clearly acting out of fear of retribution, of what could come down on them. And having seen what's happened to you, it increases their fear. So they're now like, oh my God, we really got to behave here, we really got to do exactly what they say, because otherwise we'll end up like poor dad out on his ear with nothing. And that's very frightening for somebody, let alone other threats and accusations of where you may end up at the end of it all, in the fiery lake, or you know, not in paradise, or whatever it is that causes you this amount of distress and fear. Your poor lads must have their stomach tied up in knots 24 hours a day since this happened. You know, it cannot be sitting right with them. They cannot sleep well at night, content that they've been a good Christian today, because of the fact that they've ostracised their own dad, or they've been forced to ostracise their own dad.
Yeah, and they've started bringing up, because they could see it wasn't going very well for them, they started to bring up fresh accusations which weren't in the statements, so they had to be shouted down by the judge.
I was going to, do you think that they themselves are inventing those, or do you think that somebody's whispering those in their ear? Try this, try that.
They think they're being honest because they believe it happened when it didn't. So they believe the narrative from the leader.
They're just trying to throw more stones at the situation, even though this isn't a true stone. The means are justified. Or
so what do I do?
Justified by the end.
Yeah, I sat right through the case, didn't say a word, just watched them, every move, which is powerful. Silence is powerful.
Absolutely. Not as I talk with my children. Do not justify it with a response. If somebody says something to you so ridiculous and so preposterous, not responding can be more powerful than trying to argue with such a ridiculous point.
Yeah.
You know, and you retain the position of power by not justifying something so preposterous with a response.
And that's pretty much what I've had to do right through this since they excommunicated me. There are scriptures, you know, I mean, take Christ going to the cross. Although he accepted the abuse and the spitting, he actually was in control and going steadfastly on to death. And that's the teaching. So you take your inspiration when you're going through pressure from Christ. And to my mind, I didn't have any other training. I didn't have legal training. I didn't have anything, but I did have biblical training. So that saved the day. I've tried to take all the accusations, a bit like the woman in John 8, where she committed adultery. These guys all brought her to the Lord to have her stoned, and he said, "Neither do I." He said, "He was without a stone. He was without sin. Cast the first stone." So they all slunk away. And then the Lord said to her, "Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more." So that's powerful.
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that forgiving spirit is going to win in the end. That good over evil. You don't meet evil with evil. You don't meet evil. It's not my job to punish. My job is to tell the truth and expose the truth.
And to submit yourself to being judged by the Almighty when the time comes.
Yeah. Or hold yourself accountable to be judged by you or anyone.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the more I push my own programme and say how innocent I am, the more I'm exposing myself, really, because it's like it turns into a battle.
Yeah.
You know, which doesn't achieve anything.
No. Which is where non-justification without a response is a good argument, because I'm not even going to acknowledge your accusations. They're so preposterous. Which, it's reasonable, but obviously your poor lads must be, their hearts must be in tatters over this, you know.
I said to someone, I said publicly to someone, my son's heart's screaming underneath, screaming for his dad. Yeah. They're not allowed to reach out.
Very painful, very heart-wrenching. And what astonishes me above all is how the cult as an entity has infiltrated all of the families within the cult and placed this fear between them. Yeah. You know, and caused your friend who was cleaning her house to feel unable to even say hello and ask how you are. Now, how Christian is it to completely shun somebody and not even see if there's an opportunity to help or save or forgive them? That doesn't sound very Christian to me.
Especially when she says she's so happy in the religion, so happy days. You thought she might have a little happiness left over to show me.
To be a good Christian with you.
So we turn it round and say, when a man's been excommunicated, lost his family, his business, his social circle, his religion, his friends and everything, money, career, and he comes and knocks on your door and he's been kind to you all his life.
How did
the Lord knocked on the door. The Lord's mother knocked on the door of the inn. At least they found her a place in the stables. But this guy, they will not even talk to him.
They could have let you take shelter in their garage, per se. I mean, without even speaking to you, she has no idea why you were there. You could have been begging for a piece of bread. You could have been begging for forgiveness because you'd seen the error of your ways.
Exactly.
You know,
but
she doesn't know.
So the last day when things weren't going well, the last three witnesses, apart from the policeman, all said that because they'd had to admit that they had clicked the links on my email and opened the letter, which they didn't have to do, the last day this new thing came up. Well, we didn't know if he was ill and reaching out for help. So,
oh, really? Oh, really?
So my lawyer said, come on, you're the third person to say that today. Basically, has the leader told you to say that overnight? Have you been colluding? So it was a complete exposure.
Total sham.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so the whole thing was exposed really as being a complete hodgepodge of...
How did they get away with it?
Well,
How did they get away with it?
This is, so now they've lost. They are trying to get away. They're just kind of closing down and pulling the walls down. And this is our opportunity, I think, to get inside and say, what the heck's going on in there?
It's time for a shake-up, isn't it? Because if you have 55,000 people internationally, you deny them a right to education, you deny them knowledge, you deny them contact with anybody outside the group, you know, first point is it's unquestionably a cult. You know, and the second point is it's unquestionably unhealthy and negative to prevent this kind of
so you can never
knowledge and openness.
Yeah, that's right. You can never work for non-brethren, so you can never be a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, any career.
Well, if you've never been to university, you've got a small chance of that anyway, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. But can't be a teacher, can't any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So he's actually
holding people back.
Absolutely. So they're easily manipulated. They don't understand legals. With my wife, he had when they
does he refer to everybody as his flock?
Yeah.
So sheep. sheep.
Yeah.
They're sheep.
Well,
You know, in my world, if someone's a sheep, it's a negative term. It means that they kowtow and don't question and have no backbone and have no, you know, they just follow the flow without thinking and without volunteering.
But then a true shepherd, there's something good about a true shepherd who will look after the flock, and the flock thrive and feel safe. And the wolf comes, the shepherd will restore to save them. That's all right. So that sheep in that connection is okay. And you tend to go to a religion for safety, security, and comfort, especially if you've been.
But you don't expect to be kept ignorant.
No.
You expect to be enlightened.
Yeah.
And to have your eyes open.
Yeah.
And to be informed. And to be, you know, to be given the tools, if necessary, to argue your point with a heretic. Yeah. If you come into contact with one.
And you're never taught to try and recognise a narcissist or a psychopath or a controller.
Well,
that's never come
by the sounds of it, if you had that ability, you'd be calling out all of your superiors.
Yes. So they can't afford that to get into their brains. So there's no, right from the cradle, there's no alternative than to look up and lick and adore the man of God. It's all a bit odd, isn't it?
Very odd. Very odd. I mean, I've always struggled my whole life with the level of intelligence of people in religions, as far as to say incredibly intelligent people are religious. And I've often wondered, but how can they not see the preposterousness of it all as such? But in this instance, they're being deliberately kept away from education and away from any potential where they might generate a question which is uncomfortable or unanswerable for.
Well, I believe that. All I would say to that is that I believe that I understand most of the ministers in the UK government are Christians. Right. So, and a lot of but a lot of very top people, scientists, are Christians. So. Yeah, you can't convince me that unintelligent people are Christians.
No, I wasn't suggesting that. No. But I was saying that as a layman, as a person of lower intelligence, you know, I've often marvelled at the fact that people far more intelligent than me do believe all of the stuff in religion. I'm not saying religious people are not intelligent or non-intelligent people are religious.
Well, I don't like religion per se.
I'm simply.
I like Christianity, but not religion.
I find it surprising through my life, you know.
So I like the greater and in touch with the greater, but I don't like religion because it's controlling per se. You know, whether it's Catholics, Scientologists, whatever, the control is unnecessary. Religion should, if it was true. Christ is all about setting people free to be the best selves, so they can actually function.
And the book was already written a few thousand years ago, so we don't need anybody else in between me and the book to tell me how to read a book.
Exactly.
As such.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
And I am fully aware that many great scientists who have not been religious through most of their life have reached a point in their science where they feel religion is the only answer left.
Or God is the only answer.
Or God is the only. Sorry, God is the only answer left. Yeah. As far as to say, you know, they've been investigating some scientific subject, for example, the creation of the universe, and they got to the point where there's this detail we simply cannot explain and cannot prove, and the only plausible answer for this is God. Well, did that step, and then the rest of it could happen.
Exactly. And there's a scripture somewhere where it says the sun went back on the dial by day, and scientists have worked out stuff going back, and they're a day out. There it is. So
just to quantify what I said a moment ago as well, because I don't want people misinterpreting me in the future if they ever see this film, is that I wasn't saying that I feel there's any detriment to the intelligence of someone if they believe in God. My point was religion, separating God from religion.
Yeah, absolutely.
That hugely intelligent people subscribe to a book of preordained and prescribed ideas and systems and protocol that they must follow, as opposed to like you saying religion is one thing and God is above everything.
Yeah.
I believe in God, but I don't like religion.
No.
You know, and I fully respect that, and I completely respect your belief in God, and I respect you for speaking out and speaking against religion.
But I don't even call it, God is because people think of a man in heaven. It's a sense, you stand in awe of the greater.
Yeah.
And I haven't got a brain to comprehend God, per se.
Well, none of us have. That's why there's so many opinions and stories from the beginning of time.
But
Yeah.
that awe-stricken...
We're all just clutching at straws trying to explain something we will never comprehend.
But the awe I have for the divine, if I'm genuine, is reflected in the awe and respect I have for you as an individual and others. So it's actually a very healthy thing to realise people are great. You look up to people and respect them. You don't look down. Dictators and bullies and all that are out. They're just not in the game.
Yeah. Well, they're just in it for what they can get out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which in itself is anti-religious and anti...
Yeah, well, Christianity, the whole...
Almost satanic.
Yeah, because the whole concept of Christianity is supply and giving and generosity. Whereas the commercial system is greed and do another down and just grab what I can get kind of thing at the expense of others.
Step on these people to get to where I want to go, absolutely.
Which is what scriptures is denouncing, all right through. There are some extreme scriptures, but broadly speaking, scripture denounces going for wealth and really is saying that a good test of your spirituality is how you are towards the poor, to the orphans, the widows, people who are disadvantaged.
People often cite how you treat waiters. When people mistreat waiters, it's a sign of their personalities in deficit.
Yes.
You know, and when they treat a waiter as an equal, because they are an equal, you know, then it shows that they're a decent person.
Yeah.
You know,
And it says in the Bible, in as much as you've done it to one of these little ones, you've done it to me. That's what Jesus said. So, however you treat a vulnerable person is how you're treating Christ. And the world put Christ on the cross. So people who are nasty to vulnerable people are doing the same.
Have been for centuries.
So its teaching is very unique and very precious, actually, because it actually influences what kind of a person you are. All good, it's all good, all positive. But you don't get aggressive and annoying because you're just so determined to push your own view. You actually respect other views and welcome them and adjust yourself.
And listen,
That's not weakness. That's actually strength, because you're improving as you go on, and
it's called growth.
Humble enough to listen to others' inputs to improve yourself and improve them, and they feel better, you feel better. So it's all an increasing.
Even if you end up shaking hands and go, well, we don't agree on that subject, but that's cool. Because we both behave like you and I. I think we're a great example because we behave in a very similar way towards other people, and inside our head it's quite different. And I like that. I like that about you. I really respect that about you. That you know, you have this belief, and it is so strong. It's in every cell of your being. You know, and I fully respect that.
And you see, Christ, he went and talked to the prostitute, you know, and linked on with her going to the well. So why are these people putting a big wall up and saying we're better than you?
Why are they so anti-Christians?
Yeah. Why are they going to court against an individual? 21 of the blighters,
because
and then
didn't like the tone of doing that.
I mean, it's ridiculous when you think about it.
Pathetic.
It
is
is
the word.
It
is. Looks pathetic. And it looks like desperation.
Yeah.
And it looks like literally you have nothing on this guy.
Yeah.
And you're throwing everything you can pick up on the floor at him.
You're fabricating
in the hope of doing him some damage.
Yes.
But you're not going to do him any damage because he's on a higher plane than all of you.
And just to finish off,
you've all pushed him to that higher plane.
Yeah. So the month before the case, I got the police at my door again, 2 policemen, and they said, "Oh, we've got to take you into cells tonight."
Into custody.
I said, "Why? Well, we're not allowed to stay to we'll take you into custody." I said,
"Isn't that kidnapping?" Don't they have to tell you why they're restricting your freedom?
My nephew, Neil Christie, had reported me to them for contempt of court, of the court order, because I, by mistake, pressed a button on my emails and resent him an email I sent 2 years previously. Just exactly the same, absolutely the same.
Right.
The judge, in the build-up towards the court case, said that because I was the victim, I wasn't allowed to speak to any of these witnesses. But Neil Christie and all my relatives were allowed to speak to me. So Neil Christie could have just rung me.
It's the same as the sex. It's the same as the cult. They're allowed to say anything they want to you, and you're not allowed to reply.
But the point I'm making is the judge. I couldn't understand it, but the judge was actually, if there was a mistake or misunderstanding, they could have rung me and said, "What's this?" I said, "Oh, it's a mistake." But no,
why
they go to the police and say, "We've got this." They were obviously hoping to.
Are you sure you did that, or do you think they hacked your computer and they did it?
I did it by myself. As soon as I don't know, I remember lawyers.
Went, oh no!
Yeah, the lawyers said they're so tough at the back of them.
I have a beautiful setting on my Gmail that when you send an email, you've got 30 seconds to press cancel.
Oh, see?
Yeah, and you hit it and it doesn't send the email. It's a genius fitting because I do most of my proofreading after I've hit send.
Right.
You know, well, as soon as I hit send, oh no, I misspelled that. Stop it, pull it back.
So anyway, what happened was they came round. I could just hardly take anything. They let me take a
toothbrush maybe. Or,
a toothbrush. And I said, well, how long ago? Well, it could be up until your trial. Well, this was, I think it was the 7th of December, so right over Christmas, right through to the 23rd of January.
This is Gestapo now, isn't it?
So,
this is like 1944 Germany.
So I literally had to lock the door behind me, wasn't allowed to ring anybody until I was in the police car, then I could ring a lawyer. And one other guy who could go to my house, that was all. And I was in the cells for the night. But I did tell the police all about the cult on the way up. So the police now know, but they had to run on with that case then. Because they
had to do what they got to do, but it's good that they knew who they have in the car.
But they will say, we've got to do this, it's rules. It's nothing to do with us, we've got to do this.
Oh, their hands are so tied.
Well, when you think that the lawyers and the brethren have manipulated them, you can see why. Because they have to do what's laid on them.
Absolutely, it's their duty.
So of course, what happened the next morning, I was taken to the court. Same judge that ruled in my case.
He was surprised, wasn't he? What are you doing there?
He was told what had happened. But Christie made a mistake. He said, "Is the wording just the same as the email I sent to you?"
Yes. Any extra full stop
anything to it?
Nothing.
He said, "Case dismissed. Off you go."
Get out. But you got to feel like a criminal for a night.
I couldn't sleep, it's a hard bed.
Well,
terrible.
Were you on your own in the cell, or did you have a boyfriend?
No thanks.
Well, exactly my point, you know.
I think I want allowed to be my girlfriend in Sydney, my fiancée. It's so shocking that the police can. And when I spoke to the police,
it's not shocking that the police can do that. It's shocking that they had to do that in that situation.
Yes.
You know, they do have to have the right to go and grab a criminal and put them in prison to protect the society around them. But when it's such a pointless and trumped up and flimsy thing like that, they should have a little bit more power of autonomy, shouldn't they? To say, well, before we don't bother the judge on this, there are no differences between these emails. So this guy's clearly not a flight risk. We've got his car key. For example, and he's promised he's not going to go anywhere, and so he'll be in court on Monday.
So the brethren, what we've got to understand, the brethren are not doing anything to advocate for me. They're not giving the full story to the police. And this is what came out right across the case. They were only picking out the nastiest bits they could think to say about me.
They could invent to say about you by the sounds of it.
Like, for instance, I replied to an email that Garth sent to me, copied into 29 of the top brethren in the north of England, when they shut me up, basically saying what a bunch of shit I was. And so it came up in court, but this is a reply. Did you not think to take the
original
email
that
that's replied to the police? Oh no, because they're trying to do me down, just trying to finish me off.
Well, yeah, because they
And
didn't
also
want to reveal what they'd said.
It's awful what said, terrible stuff, yeah.
So they may have got in trouble for what they said more than your reply.
Yeah, exactly. So they hide all that.
Yeah. Do you have a copy of that there, or?
Yeah, somewhere. It was all part of the evidence. Well, no, the email that I sent was not there, but it was exposed for not being there. You see.
Yeah, there's a big hole in the evidence list.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got it here somewhere.
I mean, it's a bit like you attacking me physically, and then me punching you on the nose for attacking me, and then you running to the police saying he punched me on the nose.
But they are saying, they said in the case, it's a bit like slapping yourself in the face and saying he made me do it. That's what said in the case.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly right. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
They slap themselves in the face and they bang their own head against the wall, and then they went running to the police saying that you made them do it.
I mean, it's so bizarre. And of course they're relying on the police not being intelligent.
Yeah. or being boxed in to only do what they're allowed to do.
Yeah.
You know, and following their instructions to the letter.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we're from a country where justice is very important.
Yeah.
And fairness is very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here they're saying that all this heresy and nastiness. So when they asked, why did you read them then, if you knew it was going to be nasty because it's from Lance?
Yeah.
But one of the sons said, I was curious to know what he'd written.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you want to be curious about what you regard as damaging and hate, well, it's your problem, isn't it, really?
Well, completely. But as an adult, you should be able to read something and rise above it if it's not to your liking.
Yes.
Surely, you know.
So what we've got to understand, the brethren are now having to justify what they were doing, and they're saying things like, we complained to the police about Lance's unreasonable behaviour and the falsehoods he was spreading, but the Crown took the case out. Presumably, nothing to do with us because they felt there was a case to answer. As it was the
Crown's so bored they go around looking for cases like
this. As it's the Crown's, and the Crown is so special, we couldn't instruct lawyers. Jolly well did. So they're lying.
Yeah. Well, in so many ways and so many levels.
Yeah. And
they're lying on a daily basis to 55,000 people, trying to keep them out of the real world.
Exactly.
I feel sorry for the 55,000 that are still in there.
Yes, exactly.
They need saving.
And then they'll say it's cost us nothing to for the Crown to bring this case against Lance. And my advice to him, our advice to him, would be to just get on with his life. To try and justify themselves, they say, my advice to Lance would be to just get on with his own life, leave others alone, save his money, and use it wisely. Happy days, you know. Just leave us alone, go and chill on the beach. You've got no moral use. There's no point standing for justice. There's no point doing anything moral.
We've destroyed your life. Now go and deal with it.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound very Christian to me. You know, I mean, if they are Christians, then surely they have a duty to help you, to forgive you, and to try and save you.
And why save your money? They should be paying me money for what they've done to me.
Well, absolutely.
So they're actually...
At least costs, if not compensation as well.
Surely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And compensation for what they took away from you, and the future potential of what they've taken away from you.
Yeah.
You know, the bill should be millions.
So it's control as well. save his money and use it wisely. And we are the judiciary. We can say how you should use your money. They've been trying to control me all my life. You can't go on holiday. You can use this with your money, not very much. Buy a nice car, a nice house. But now they've chucked you out and they're still trying to control how I use my money.
It's astounding, isn't it?
It is.
And what's most astounding is how they keep getting away with it.
Yeah.
And how they've got 55,000 people who are completely hoodwinked into believing every word they say and following their instructions and ostracising their own dear loved ones on a whim, on a word from above.
It's completely, it's evading any responsibility. They've triggered the whole thing. They've done it. Oh, he can go and use his money. They're trying to take my money. Everyone's clear. Lawyers and everyone that are just trying to take my money away. Mm. And then they say use it wisely.
What, donate it back to them?
Where's the wisdom from what they're doing?
Absolutely none. Absolutely none. It's astonishing.
Yeah. And then they go on and say, if you cast any doubts as to their integrity, they'll criticise that. How dare you cast any doubts on our integrity? We would not. If you dare to question us, we don't think you can sustain it because we don't tell lies. We don't even. We're Christians. And we don't spread untruths.
So by default, no matter what they say, it's the truth.
Yeah. So you are spreading lies about us without checking a single fact. And
just the fact that you've lived it for 60 odd years.
Yeah. You accuse Neil and others of lying in court and put that in writing. What are the lies we are supposed to have told in court? They used to say some briefs of visits.
957 of them, isn't
there? Yeah. So, but a lot of this accusation, leading a hate campaign, well, that's lies, actually. All these things they're saying are actually, it's a false representation, it's misrepresentation, at least, if not blatant lies. Completely. And misrepresentation is wrong in court. You're meant to represent truly the situation.
Well, you even swear on your book, don't you?
Yeah, on the Bible, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or, I say on your book, meaning whoever you are, you choose the book that you swear on and swear on the good book in order to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
So narcissists putting it back on you, have you carefully checked the accuracy of your statements and made sure they're true and witnessable? I'll be amazed if you can find any lie that's been told in court and back it up with fact. They may have expressed an opinion in answer to questions.
That, isn't it? Because in effect, how could you prove that you didn't run a hate campaign?
Yeah.
They're putting it back on you to say, well, prove our lie is wrong.
Yeah.
Prove our lie is a lie.
Yeah. But you see, it was proved in court because they were asked to state where the hatred was. Where in that letter is hatred? Lance is entitled to a view. He's not forced by law to agree with everything Bruce Hale says.
Well, as we established earlier, the hatred was in the tone, allegedly.
Yeah. So it
how
is
they
nice.
Can read a tone from an email. I mean, to quote an old classic, if you want to be truly understood, truly misunderstood, send a text message. Because people will read that with their own internal voice,
yes.
Don't they? And as was the case with many narcissists and psychopaths, is they project onto the victim themselves. So them calling you a liar is in fact them admitting that they're liars.
Yes.
Because they're calling you a liar and they want you to be punished for their crime.
But this is how they've been operating for 60 years.
And beyond.
Getting away with lies. So they may have expressed an opinion in answer to questions which will vary with Lance's view, but I don't believe they would ever resort to lying. So in other words, there's no truth.
It's just
we're all allowed opinions. And if our opinion is that Lance is a heretic, we're entitled to that,
and
despite all the
truth.
consequences.
That's their truth, isn't it? you know. But the truth is not a malleable aspect, is it? Something's either true or it's not, you know, and can be proven or disproven, hence the existence of a court.
Exactly. And, you know, Lance makes wild accusations without a shred of evidence. Any sane person from any walk of life understands that when parties divorce, assets are split and families support the innocent party. So they said that I was mental, and they were actually rebuking me in assembly. But here I am, I've come through. Now, why they ever resort to rebuking and humiliating mental people, I'll never understand.
And stripping them of their assets.
Yes.
You know,
And their wives and families.
Oh, it's all right, I can take this guy, everything from this guy because he's mental. Well, then sell everything that's his and use it for his treatment and care. Not take it from him. Give him the benefit of it, you know?
But the fact is I'm not mental, I'm not allergic.
Well, absolutely. I'm just saying, even if you were, you know, the protocol would not be to strip you of your assets. It would be to support and care for you. And as a Christian, even more so, surely.
So we are dealing with a wicked organisation that is out to strip families and individuals of their assets and get control of the hierarchy of the leader, so that it goes through for the next millennium under the leadership of the Hales family. So I see it.
Clearly.
Well, what sort of family are they?
Well, from
Australian convicts?
Everything. That's probably too many generations back to link in this point, is it? Although, you know, DNA memory and all that, who knows? But from what I see, if a person on this earth is claiming to be so close to God or Jesus, then surely doesn't that, by definition, make them a heretic? Make them an unbeliever because they're presenting themselves as a false prophet?
Yes. Well, I'll read out from some Bruce Hale's ministry, August 11th, 2019. Persons who have gone out from us think they've got a right to contact us. And they haven't got a right to contact us. They've forfeited the right. I'm not putting that on everybody, but there's a class of persons that have forfeited their right to contact us and converse with us, and for us also to converse with them. So he's justifying the legal statement he's read out in his churches that the brethren don't want anything to have anything to do with Lance Christie ever again.
But from what that says there, that would require you to have forfeited your rights.
Yes.
Not them to have forfeited your rights.
Yes.
Because the circumstances in which you were involuntarily pushed out was not you forfeiting your rights. It was them forfeiting your rights.
Yeah, exactly.
Therefore, that does not stand.
No.
That should not stand.
No.
You know, there should be an additional clause in there to say, also, the people we kick out have no right to contact us. But it does not say that.
No.
So, you know, that's technically incorrect.
Well, it's poor English anyway, very
their
poor.
behaviour is not following their instructions.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I doubt that has much to do with the scriptures themselves, does it?
Then he goes on, well, here today you're in the area of salvation. Yeah, it says sweetness and light. We don't do anything wrong. We don't lie. You've got to believe that or you're out.
But if you're in our club, then you're safe, no matter what. Unless we decide that you're no use to us anymore, and then you're out.
Yeah.
And you're straight back.
Yeah. And you tell our lies, and you'll be all right. Not very good, is it?
It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
No.
And you know, it is purely the fact that the poor guys left in there are conditioned to believe this guy and terrified of speaking out against him because they've already seen what happened to you and you didn't even speak out against them.
No.
You merely did their job better than them, as we established earlier. You cared more than their people do. The people, and I'm kind of guessing these priests probably have a salary, don't they? They probably get paid for being a priest. They don't do it for free, do they?
Yeah, they get gifts, and of course they are in control of businesses as well, maybe on boards, so they get in making sure it's going up to the houses basically.
But they themselves get an income from this.
Yeah,
They must do, because they can't live on fresh air.
Yeah.
You know, they
Oh,
can't
but
run
they're businessmen who run businesses,
Okay.
but they're actually used to control a hierarchy and run with a hierarchy.
Yeah, but to provide them with money. And therefore, they are being paid in some way to perform the work of Christ or perform the work of Bruce.
Exactly.
I'm just wondering which it is. I think it's technically supposed to be Christ, but then Bruce got in the way and distorted all the instructions.
I think there's a film, isn't it, called Bruce Almighty? Heard of that one? So to finish then,
So the main message we want to convey with the book, as we were saying, is we've got all of the facts, we've got all of the case notes, we've got all of the he said, she said from within the case, and to using this information, what message is it that we want to ultimately convey with this book? Apart from the truth, the whole truth and nothing but, we also want to leave the door open and to inform victims of these cults who are trapped inside these cults that there is life outside the cult. And actually being kicked out of the cult is not the end, it's the beginning of life.
Yes. So we're sharing the court case with the public through the books to empower them, give them the tools to recognise if they're under coercion and control themselves by narcissists or psychopaths who pose as being priests or elders. And once they're enlightened as to that, giving them the tools to take issue with it and leave.
And the confidence to leave.
Yes. And we've applied to open the Free Indeed charity to provide care for counsellors, but more importantly, the Elevate programme, which gives them the life skills or the tools to take control of their lives so that they are responsible themselves and
have the confidence in their own decisions.
Yes. And they can also use this factual book of what's public and factual has been arrived at by the British judiciary to take issue with their leaders and give them the reasons why they're leaving, because they're not prepared to succumb to this crap any longer.
Through the mental slavery that they're being put up, held upon, held under. So.
So in theory, they could have their own mini court sessions without paying my costs.
And cite this.
And use this and say, you are doing to me what Charlie Thomas and Neil Christie have done to Lance. And it was exposed as being wrong and unjust. Immoral, and against Christian principles. And every religion, if you're taking up any combined status at all, should be subject to the laws of the country in which they are, and to God's law, which is greater, gives them more scope to be even better, not worse. The trouble is these people have manipulated God's law to shove good people down the drain to continue their nefarious work. So we're actually empowering the masses, we're empowering the rank and file, we're empowering the poor of the flock to actually take up their rights. It's a breach of human rights, it's a breach of natural justice, the whole thing.
Completely.
And so
distortion of everything.
So we encourage you to take the 8 aspects of life up for yourself so you become better than I am. And we want people to be better than us. We're not dictators.
As a proper Christian. Not a fake one.
So you seriously, genuinely, I want people to be better than me, so there's no narcissistic control, because narcissists cannot bear anyone to be better than them. So they have to throw their own shit back on you to keep you down. So it's their motives. When they said I was sowing discords in there, Well, it's because they were sowing discords in my family and
Well,
my...
it's a projection of their own crimes onto you, isn't it?
So I'm all confused what's all this discord. There was nothing deliberate. Sowing discords is a deliberate thing. If I had caused discourse, it's only because I was standing for the truth. And that...
But I mean, that is so weak in itself, isn't it? That's almost as if to say that if you took the Labour and the Conservative Party, then any member of the Labour Party could, in theory, start suing a member of the Conservative Party for sowing discord because they're sowing opinions that don't align with their own.
Exactly.
Which is preposterous. I mean, it's anti-democratic, it's anti-Christian, it's anti-everything.
No freedom of information, freedom of opinion. So you're all coerced and forced to think a certain way. And if you've got a good leader who always thinks the best of people, always gives people the benefit of the doubt, always forgives, fine.
And helps them if they need it.
And can demonstrate and hold himself accountable to the people, fine. Leaders can do good. But if he's nasty and shooting people down and ruining lives and splitting families to keep himself up there on his pedestal, his false pedestal, it must stop. End of.
Must be stopped, and the laws that you mentioned a moment ago, people must abide by the laws in the country that they reside. And perhaps some of the laws do need to be changed to protect people more against things like this.
Yes, I agree.
You know, there ought to be some kind of tightening or adjustment to the law to include the possibility to take down cults and to stop cults erupting and growing and existing in general, because there is no benefit from it, apart from for the person at the top.
And that's certainly my aim.
Everyone in it.
In the same way as Wilberforce outlawed slavery before he died, I want to outlaw cults before I die. Because it's coercion, and which is bullying. And
it's slavery, it's mental slavery.
Yes, it's suppression. Yeah. It's not nurturing people to be their best selves.
It's a bit like, I imagine, when they were gathering slaves in Africa, they may have enticed them onto the boat with something. They may not have beaten them all and dragged them onto the boat. They may have, waved some fruit at them and said, do you want to come this way? There's loads more on there. And then next thing you know, they're on the way to America to be slaves.
Yeah.
And they're kind of wondering what happened. They may have even drugged them or got them drunk or done all kinds of things to make it as cheap as possible and as easy as possible to gather these people. Same thing happens here, isn't it? They're enticed in under the guise of a false prophet, proclaiming all kind of benefits that they will get by becoming a member of this group, whereas there are no benefits, because it distorts your view on Christianity and therefore it deteriorates you as a Christian. It takes your money away in huge sums every year, and if they decide you're no longer of any use to them, it takes all of your money away, and your family, and your home, and your car. And they keep everything.
And old people tend to become superfluous to requirements, so there's just not the care in there for the old people. So people are shunted off to homes. As soon as you stop making money, and you're a liability. So they just won't rid, and they get rid of me. But then others who have got a big story to tell because they've been treated badly, when they're just dying, they try and get them back. They got right in the end.
We saved them.
Shocking stuff.
So they would claim credit for that as well. And how does this guy sleep at night? Honestly, how does he sleep at night? Being where he is, he must be so completely atheist, because he has no fear of any kind of retribution for what he's doing. Which in my mind, you could not do that whilst being a Christian.
No.
Because you would be in daily fear and upset about what you know is coming to you if you're doing that.
I'd far rather an honest atheist than a fake Christian. I hate fakes.
Of all kinds, absolutely.
Get a woman, if she's a fake, you don't want her. You want, and a good woman always looks for genuine husband. That genuineness and sincerity, reality.
So much more attractive, isn't it? Absolutely.
Because it's inside out, it's not
irrespective of the sex of the person, the person's personality usually shines through.
Exactly.
Unless they're a master deceiver like some of these people are. But they can use the you can usually pick up on their decency and honesty just by the way they treat people around them, by the way they are, by the way they speak, by the way they listen.
Yeah, and my heart goes out to them. We're not against you. You are actually cutting us off society. You are saying we can't come into you. You cut us. I can't have. You'd be welcome at my house. You know, especially
if
my family.
any one of these 55,000 brethren wanted to walk out tomorrow and come and knock on your door, what would you do?
Be glad to see them.
You'd be very glad to see them, and you'd help them in any way you could, I'm sure. You know, you'd help them find a room, you'd help them find a job, you'd help them get their life back together. We would look to help them, what's the word, get their possessions back and get what is rightfully theirs. And that they've worked for so many years for, that they deserve to get back.
Yeah, and I thought, I was investing my whole life into them, my father did as well, that arbitrarily withdrawn from, and we've been conned. I mean, it's just such the penny drops. These people have been sucking you dry, then hang you out to dry.
When you're of no further use to them.
Yeah. Not very good, is it?
There is no other system like it that I'm aware of. You know, I mean,
that takes your business and everything.
Even the military look after the old veterans, don't they? Give them a pension. And they don't just strip them of everything and kick them out on the street.
But you see, it's all conditional. So we care. They say we care for our own. So long as you're a sheep and just do exactly what you're told.
Yeah. It's very easy to quickly not become their own, isn't it? On a whim that they decide.
Yeah.
Or if you show them up by doing their job better than them, or caring more than they do, or being more genuine than they are, that must be an awkward one when somebody is definitely genuine, and therefore they probably feel at risk of exposure because they're not doing it properly. And if somebody keeps doing it properly, other people are going to pick up on that and go, hold on a minute, why is he always the guy that goes and helps someone and you guys are the guys that are technically paid to help someone? You know, it doesn't look good, does it?
No. And whatever they say about me, and they know if they're honest, I don't bullshit, I just tell the truth. And that's why I'm where I am. I've never come through this trauma.
Well, that's why your business was so successful, because you told the truth to your clients and your employees, you know, and your suppliers, and that's why that's why they went after you, because they saw that there was so much they could get, and they could get rid of you, and therefore keep the money that you would get paid for your part as well. Astounding.
And even the employees who I really built up and had, I would say, extremely good wages, they told the lawyers that if I came back in to claim the business, they would all walk out. Thank you very much.
I'm sure they were made to say that, weren't they? Do you want to be fired now, or do you want to say this for me? You know, and it may well not even have been any of your sons that said it to them.
No.
It could have been the priest that came down and had a quiet word in everybody's ear. Right, this is how it's going to work, guys. You're going to say this, you're going to say that, and you're going to say it like this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a total sham, the whole thing.
Well, we only want the best for them, and we hope they'll take it to heart
and they shall have forgiveness and help and salvation and so on and so forth. It's all there within their reach. All they have to do is pick up a phone or send an email.
You're quite good on salvation for an agnostic, aren't you?
Absolutely.